The Monster is one of Ducati's most important bikes. When it was first introduced in 1993, it quickly sold like hotcakes. So much so that at one point, the sales of the Monster accounted for more than half of the sales of Ducati worldwide. To say it was a fan favorite is an understatement. The bike became the gateway model to the exclusive world of Ducati. And today, we got the latest model, the 2021 Ducati Monster 937. It's time to go beyond the ride. The bike is powered by a 937cc liquid-cooled 4-valve L twin engine that punches out 111 horsepower at 9,250 RPM and 93 Nm of torque at 6,500 RPM. Stopping power is provided by 320mm discs up front with Brembo calipers and 245mm disc at the rear with Brembo calipers as well. It's also equipped with cornering ABS. Keeping bumps at bay, you get a non-adjustable 43mm upside-down fork up front and a progressive linkage preload adjustable monoshock at the rear. The bike is loaded with tons of tech and safety features. It's got different riding modes that they like to call urban, touring, and sport. It's also got power modes, cornering ABS, traction control, wheelie control, daytime running lights, full LED front and back, and look at these indicators. I think that's really cool. It's also got an up and down quick shifter and launch control. I mean, it's a road bike, but leave it to Ducati to add launch control on a road bike. The tires are Pirelli Diablo Rosso 3. The front is 120/70, the rear is 180/55, both on 17s. The fuel tank capacity is 14 liters, and Ducati claims that you can get about 20 kilometers per liter depending on how you ride. Now, I got closer to about 18 on the highway, being a little bit conservative. The seat height is 820mm, and Ducati can give you a lower seat and a lowering kit as well, but the standard is 820. I am 5'6" with a 763mm inseam, and that's the situation. Not bad whatsoever. It's got a wet weight of 188 kilograms, and that is extremely light for the power of this bike. I mean, that's the same weight as bikes that are maybe more than half of the displacement. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, something that a lot of people have been commenting about in our launch video of the new Ducati Monster. Does it still look like a monster? Truth is, it doesn't. The trellis frame is gone. Yes, the iconic look of the Monster is not there anymore, but is that necessarily a bad thing? Because Ducati was able to shed off close to 20 kilograms, and the main thing that they did was get rid of that trellis frame. Now, I mean, it may not look like the monsters of the past, but it does closely resemble the newer Ducatis, the Street Fighter, the Multistrada, and the Panigale. And honestly, that's what the Monster is supposed to be, the entry-level Ducati. Let's do a quick sound test. You gotta love these Italians. The seat is nice, soft, and comfortable. Honestly, a lot more comfortable than I thought it would be. And I'm quite pleasantly surprised with the comfort of the seat. It's one of the more comfortable seats I've sat on a motorcycle. The ergonomics, well, it's pretty aggressive. The foot pegs are rear set and pretty high, but not so bad that somebody who's, well, I'm 5'6", so I think it's perfect for somebody close to my height. I could imagine somebody who's over 6 feet tall will probably feel a little bit cramped sitting on this Monster. And I don't feel much weight on my wrists, to be honest with you. So it's a pretty pleasant seating position for somebody close to my size. I could imagine somebody taller be a little bit uncomfortable on the bike. So riding in the city is actually not bad. I mean, it's easy to filter with the bike. It's super light, that it's quite controllable, and you can filter quite relatively easy. And it's really made to be a city riding or an urban riding machine. And there is another elephant in the room, though. I mean, that is the heat. And I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I'm not gonna lie. The bike does get hot. I mean, all bikes will get hot, right? I mean, it's inevitable. But I would say that it's probably the downside of this bike, just like most other powerful bikes out there. And well, let's just say it. A lot of Ducatis out there do run hot. And do I think it's gets too hot? Well, borderline too hot for the Philippines in stop and go traffic. But when you get out on the open road, it's actually quite pleasant. You won't really feel it that much. But yes, city riding and stop and go traffic could be a little bit issue when it comes to the heat. All you got to do is really filter a little bit better so that you're not stuck in traffic that often. The dash is nice and quite pleasant. You can read it under direct sunlight. It has all the necessary information there. You can control the different riding modes. You can control all the different adjustments that you want to make. And it does give you pretty much everything that you want to know in terms of information. It also does not have a fuel gauge. It does have a, kilometers to empty measurement, which is still okay, which is still something, I suppose, the replacement of the full and empty fuel gauge, the traditional fuel gauge that most bikes have. So I don't mind it. I don't mind it so much because it really gives you at least a detailed information on how far you can go on the fuel that you have remaining. And the dash also has a sensor, so when you are, let's say, in a tunnel, or let's say it gets dark, it does adjust the lighting so that you can still see properly and not have it a distraction when you're riding. I think it still does have the Ducati mystique. Now, it doesn't, or I feel like it didn't turn as many heads while I was using the bike as, let's say, the Street Fighter or the Multistrada or some of the other bikes of Ducati. But it still has that Ducati feel, but maybe not so much as the old generation Monster. It kind of blends in a little bit more than most Ducatis out there. But keep in mind, this is the entry-level Ducati. And leave it to Ducati to have an entry-level machine that is over 900 cc and over 100 horsepower. I mean, sure, only really Ducati can do that. No other brand can have their entry-level machine this powerful. The bike is really flickable and it's extremely lightweight, and I think that's really the highlight of this thing. It's so lightweight that it does make it so much easier to use, right? It's a bike, the weight of the bike is similar to bikes that are, about 400 cc or somewhere in that range, right? But this is 900 cc, 111 horsepower. This is a powerful machine, but it's so light. And one of the things to be able to get it that light was, take away the trellis frame, take away some of the other things that were on the bike before. So I feel it does perform better than the previous generation. And I think in a way, Ducati kind of went this direction because, they were kind of, they wanted to be a little bit more performance oriented. And sometimes there's a little bit of a give and take there, to get something to perform to the way that they want it to perform, you may have to sacrifice a little bit of the tradition, a little bit of the, the way the bike used to look like. Having said that, I have to say that I'm a sucker for classic looks and nostalgia, and especially when it comes to bikes. But the world does continue to evolve, and so must motorcycles. I've never owned a Ducati Monster, so the trellis frame or other physical characteristics the Monsters of the past had really did not enter my thought process after I got on this bike for the first time. Yeah, sure, it doesn't look like the old one, but it damn sure as hell is tons of fun. I took it on the expressway and rode it to Lipa, and I honestly thought that it was going to be a little bit too light and I might feel the wind a little bit more than I would want to. But honestly, it performed really, really well on the expressway, and it did feel substantial enough. Like, I did not feel that I was going to get blown away or get myself in trouble because of the wind. So it was quite pleasant to use, and I think I could imagine riding this thing on a long ride. It would be quite, it would be really, really enjoyable. Now the thing is, there is no cruise control, and I wish the bike did have that. And it's something that, especially at the price point of the bike, you'd expect it to have cruise control. It's kind of really funny, because the bike is Ducati's entry-level bike. Let's not consider the scramblers there of Ducati, because that's really a different category. When you think about Ducati motorcycles, you think about speed, you think about style, and this bike has that, right? And this is the entry-level Ducati, and it's gotta have the same pattern as the bigger bikes in the stable of Ducati, right? Whether it's the Panigale, whether it's the Multistrada, the Street Fighter, this kind of does resemble the new generations, the new versions of those bikes. And this being the entry-level bike, I don't know if I would give this to a beginner. I don't think I would. I mean, I think it's a bike that maybe is good for for a second bike, right? If you've gone through the process of getting a smaller displacement bike, gotten used to that, and you graduate to something a little bit bigger, something a little bit more powerful, then I think this is the second bike. And I think that's where I would suggest. But having said that, even though this bike is so powerful, it's actually not scary when you ride it. It's confidence inspiring, which is really good. I mean, the way the power is delivered, it's not gonna jump out of your seat and freak you out. In fact, I think it's a lot more friendly than I expected it to be. I thought it was going to be a little bit difficult to ride, for considering it's technically a beginner, the beginner bike of Ducati, but it's not. It's actually, I would say that it's super, super friendly, and I would, but not enough for a real beginner, but maybe an intermediate one. So some of the rivals of this bike would really be the Yamaha MT-09, the Triumph Street Triple, and the KTM 890, and the BMW F900R. That's probably around the, off the top of my head, that's where I would think that this bike would compete. Now, those bikes that I just mentioned, a lot of them are probably a lot more affordable, a lot more easy to maintain, and maybe to a certain extent, maybe a little bit more reliable, some of them, let's be honest here. But I think those bikes that I just mentioned also don't have the characteristics that this bike does. This bike still has that mystique, right? That Ducati mystique that it carries. And it's something that you can't really explain, but there's something about the bike that is, it has a personality of its own. And it's something that, you get when you purchase a bike like a Ducati. A lot of the comments when we launched the video were really about the design of the bike, because it is a drastic change from what the monsters of the past look like. And I just want to point something out, right? So if you're a sneakerhead, if you are old enough to remember when the Jordan 11s originally came out, it wasn't received well right away. In fact, a lot of people were complaining about the patent leather. They were complaining about certain things about that sneaker when it came out. But, decades after that shoe came out, Nike has re-released it countless times. And it's been considered by many people as arguably the best sneaker of all time. So something that comes out and has a reaction from people that's not really positive right away, I wouldn't consider that to be, a negative thing, because sometimes I think the brand, the heritage, the mystique that comes with what this bike is will shine in the end, and it will eventually win over the rabid fans. So it may not look like the older models, but the soul and the spirit of the Monster is still here. The entry-level Ducati is a fun, powerful, sexy, sporty naked, and this is the direction that Ducati is going. You can let us know in the comment section whether you agree with it or not, but I personally love it. I absolutely do. It does get a little too hot for me, but it's the one complaint I have about this bike. And if you do love it, well, the bike can be yours for a starting price tag of 875,000 Philippine pesos. For more information about this bike and other MCs out there, log on to www.motodeal.com.ph. This has been Jinno Rufino. Hope you guys enjoyed going beyond the ride.